Hey, what's up? It's Casey Okupi with Free Speech Northwest. Today, I'm here with Branden and Seth. This is Branden. He's Irish looking. He's got like red hair. That's how you can tell who Branden is. And Seth, he kind of looks like a Seth, sort of, right? What do you think?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, well, you know what? Let's get right into it.
If you typed in my name into Facebook, I would eventually pop up. So,
Well, if you type into ChatGPT, make me a Seth, it actually looks just like you.
I'm pretty sure it's a picture of you coming up.
So it's all
I'd
like
see that,
lies. It doesn't actually generate it. It just Googles who a Seth is and it puts it on there. That's how ChatGPT actually works.
that's good to know. I had no clue.
On the offhand, name me any person named Seth that is actually a good person.
Or attractive.
Right there, you go.
No, I'm just kidding. You're a very fine-looking guy.
Very fine.
Is this what we're doing?
No, we should actually move on. So, are there any passionate topics you want to talk about? I don't know if any of you guys heard about this, but I heard there might be some sort of misunderstandings between like Israel and I don't know, Palestine and all these different, like there's like a war. I don't know, they conflict.
Talking about Tehran?
Yeah, Iran.
Iran?
Yeah, and Israel. They don't get along.
Well, that's not new.
No, and as far as it goes with like Israel and Iran, I mean, I
Yes.
agree with our government and most of the world that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Okay, and
Side
what?
note on this whole topic.
Yes.
Coming from a family where we don't travel a lot to a family, like now I would say we do travel. My brother actually flew into Tel Aviv the night that the missiles started dropping.
That doesn't sound like a healthy choice. Was that a vacation thing?
It was like a historical event. It was like through a church, and their goal was to go travel through. I mean, obviously, Israel is home to a plethora of Christian, Jewish, and Muslim historic sites, right? And so they were going to go view all these historical sites. And instead, they have spent the vast majority of the time in a bomb bunker listening to air sirens and missiles. And then they recently got bused, since all the airports are now closed in Israel. They recently got bused to Jordan, where they are awaiting, I guess, an extraction back to the U.S., hopefully later this week or early next week.
Good times.
Yeah, I don't know that going to a country with missiles raining down on it is the move.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But, I mean, once they got to Jordan, though, then now they're on, like, on a hiatus. They can actually go visit
Yeah.
some of the sites in Jordan. Like, apparently Jordan is completely unaffected by the Israeli-Iran conflict.
Well, on topic, I saw yesterday that Iran had announced that they would get rid of their nuclear stuff. Like take it down to like 3.4% nuclear enrichment for civilian use, or But if Israel got rid of their nukes, now what do we think about that?
That's just not going to happen, so that's an impossible.
Well, it wouldn't happen, but at the end of the day, I think we should all strive for a world without nukes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, idealistically that would happen, but it's not really a...
No, and is Iran going to agree to like such invasive security checks?
I want to
No,
know what
and they're not
makes
gonna be
the United
straightforward about it.
States, what makes us like the moral compass, the police of all these other countries?
Well, that's a good question. I've thought about that a lot.
Well, when did it start? Let's go back to when it started.
It would probably be after World War II.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I think it's when everyone wanted to get Levi's 501 jeans and, emulate the United States.
Yeah.
If you're going to want to emulate the U.S.
At the end of the day, I think about, nobody's perfect, and America is not perfect. Are they better? Are we better off than China or Russia policing the world? I think so.
Why?
Well, we're not a authoritarian state. I think that
Some people would argue that based on all these protests.
So yeah,
right?
I mean, a good portion of this country would argue that we are an authoritarian state right now. But I would say go over.
I mean,
to
the
Russia or
indoctrinated
China.
people of the United States would call it an authoritarian.
Yeah, but I would say if you really want to learn oppression, go to the Middle East.
The immigrants flocking to the United States, even illegally, would say that the United States is not an authoritarian state. So,
Yeah, they wouldn't want to be here if it was.
yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
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 I mean, the thing is whatever the United States is, it seems like people are, as you said, flocking here, and they're kind of, I don't know, retrofitting it to be more like the country they came from.
And
Well, it's like California coming to Oregon, right? Like,
Yes.
You had Oregon, which hasn't voted conservatively since, the 1980s?
Yeah, and I'd like to talk about that too, but
Okay, yeah.
continue.
Yeah, maybe related, maybe unrelated to when mail-in voting started, right?
Yeah.
It was right around the same time, which is interesting.
There's a lot of evidence that there are a lot of fake votes in Oregon. There's actual court cases on the subject right now.
Oh,
when people stop getting ballots for their dead cats, I'll have more trust in the system.
yeah, no, I've got friends that went to college in the last couple of years that received a ballot at their house for them, and then they also had one mailed to them in college wherever they were attending school, out of state even. So, they were receiving multiple ballots for the same person even. So that's not even counting, people that maybe don't exist anymore or never did. So
Another fact about the ballots in Oregon, my wife, for example, she received a ballot and then she lost it, and so she went to get a replacement ballot. She was completely not ID'd whatsoever.
Yeah.
And she was just handed a ballot, filled it in, and
they treat it like a to-go order at a restaurant.
Exactly.
Like, oh, we lost your order. Yeah, here you go.
And all politics aside, we can all agree that that's a problem.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Like,
I mean, if
that
your
is a
goal
real
is
problem.
equal and fair elections for everyone that's represented, right? If that's your goal, then anything that challenges that through cheating or lack of transparency, then that would defeat the purpose of having an election.
Yeah, based on what you're saying there, I kind of had a question. Do you think that, for example, if someone who is not a legal citizen votes, is that any different than Russia really interfering in our elections, do you think?
I don't think
Is there
so.
a difference?
There may be differences, smaller differences.
I think it
in
would depend how is Russia interfering? Like, how would you class it? Are they interfering by the spread of disinformation, or are they having some programmer hack into one of these, voting machines or whatnot and change outcomes? Because
Right.
those are drastically different things.
They are
but
a
they
little
both
bit
influence
But
the election.
yeah, at the end of the day, they're both interfering.
Yeah, they're both, right? Because
Yeah.
the election should be for the United States citizens only. Would you agree on that?
100%.
Of course. Yeah.
That makes sense.
But of course, you would have, an investment by a foreign nation that doesn't want the best interests for America, and they would be rallying for the worst option so that they could, place the United States in a less threatening category,
Yeah.
or have a weakened United States. And so if you look at who these foreign nations would prefer in office or who they were, I guess, colluding and cheating for,
Yeah.
I think that is a very interesting correlation because it's never random. It follows a very consecutive, and consistent pattern. So
Yeah, but when you get down to like illegal aliens voting in our secure elections, it makes no sense. Like, take this. Take a union, for example, right? They represent their members, right? You wouldn't let an outside person, vote in their union.
That
Right?
makes sense.
Because the union is not representing that outside person. They're representing the people inside, which is the same here. Our government represents us, the U.S. citizens.
well, the paying members, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you pay to be in the union, and so you're represented and protected by the union. That's
Right, and
that's
pay,
the union.
and we also pay our taxes.
Right.
There you go. That's a good correlation.
Yeah.
The tax paying / the union member, like all that.
And much like a union, you're never hurt by having less people in the union, right? Less represented members,
Right.
Right. But they have to go through a process,
Yes.
right? So I don't think anyone. I mean, this is my stance on immigration. Like, if people want to go through the proper steps, like, we're more than happy to have them. This country was obviously built by immigrants. There is no denying that. But
Yes.
go through the process. Congress decided that the legal ports of entry were the way to make it into the United States, and so they can do that.
Yes, yeah.
At what point are you no longer considered like an immigrant or whatever? I mean, like generationally, how many generations of your family needs to be here before you can consider yourself more or less like a settler or something?
I think that depends person to person.
That would more depend person to person.
That kind of has more to do with how you view yourself than how others view you.
I'm not an immigrant, so I'm not going to be able to speak on that one.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
you're kind of an immigrant, you know.
What do you like, Irish or something? Right?
Yeah, Irish.
Yeah.
But
but you consider yourself.
I would consider myself American. I'm an American citizen.
Yeah, and I'm a third generation German immigrant, and the topic of, being an immigrant, I guess that it's never come up. It's like we're American.
But I think at some point, some point, you and your family or your the family before you has been here long enough that at some point you're going to stop thinking like that. You're going to start thinking, I am an American.
Should a first generation immigrant even be allowed to be in Congress or something?
First generation immigrant in Congress.
Like Ilhan Omar.
At the end of it. Yeah, that's a hard one.
Well, I mean, that's a tough example because,
I don't like that.
Why is it a tough example?
It's a tough example because if you took someone like, for example, Elon Musk and you put them in there as like a congressional member, you can point to accomplishments that person has made that have benefited the United States, whether you like the person or not, right? And you can be like, wow, that person is an asset, right, to the United States. But then you take someone like Ilhan Omar, and it's like, okay, she's voted against any policies that would benefit the country. And that's a biased view on my point. I recognize that. But it would be difficult to point to an accomplishment where you can be like, okay, that person is for sure bettering our country. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's such a controversial figure at best, that screams about how terrible, the country that she immigrated to is.
It's true. Yeah.
It just seems like she is a tough person to use as an example, just because she is kind of a flop.
I think for me, at the end of the day, I just want to see, that you're a legal citizen of this country.
Well, it's interesting because you can go from one day illegal alien or whatever, and then the following day you can be a senator after you're legal and everything and representing all these different people when you've been in the United States hypothetically a very minute amount of time.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be opposed to some time limit being put in there, like, a citizen for
a minimum amount of time. Like if you had a minimum age for presidency, you could do a minimum, residency status.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's go all the way. I say 3 generations.
3 generations.
See, I don't know if I can get behind that.
I don't know.
You're such a liberal.
I mean, maybe, but
no. I'm just playing with you. But so we'll
it's
say
just if you have so if you're looking for contributing members of society to be the ones pushing, political agendas through, then it's easy to look at a bunch of residential lops, right? People that have been here for generations and generations and generations that are now living off of welfare. They're, collecting all kinds of government benefits, right? It would be hard to say that those people are more qualified to be in Congress than someone who moved here, 10 years ago, built their own business, like what are we trying to promote here, right? We're trying to promote
American values,
which has to do with immigration, whether we like it or not. Like,
why?
Well, because America is the place where dreams can be realized, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that we have a Statue of Liberty that says, "Bring us your, whatever people," and all this other stuff. Like that was put there a long time ago when we were settling a nation. That was during a time of settling,
when Manifest Destiny.
Yeah, when there was an industrial revolutions and all these different things, and we needed workers and
we needed a population that we didn't have.
Do we have it now? I mean, why do we?
I think we've had it for a while. That's why we're not just taking anybody.
Why should we have any immigration at all then?
Well, another thing to talk about there is our birth rate. Okay,
yeah.
America's birth rate is declining.
Okay,
I mean I think it's almost negative at this point. I'd be interested to see what the numbers are on that.
It's not good.
I think 1.7 sounds like a correct number.
And, I can take Elon Musk's warning seriously.
What do you lose when you lose the birth rate? I think you have better options for property and housing.
Yeah, but
and things.
society will crash. And if you don't keep up the birth rate, you can't keep up with GDP and growth.
I mean, at a certain point, you're going to have more people that are not working, right, than the ones that are working. Mm-hmm. And those people that are relying on the benefits are going to vastly outnumber the people that are providing the benefits, aka the young, working, tax-paying, citizens. But if you had a whole generation gap where people were not born, then you're going to have a bunch of old people that are living off of government benefits that aren't really contributing anymore, and that's going to suck the system pretty dry.
You know the weird problem with you guys? I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I'm just playing. No, I'm saying instead of saying, oh, our birth rates are shrinking crazy, you know what I mean? Which is true. Is like, why don't we just encourage people to get down, get married, get down, and have a whole bunch of kids?
Okay, well, I could talk about that. That's a hard one,
Talking to two guys that have no kids.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Fail. You're not breeders.
And I wouldn't say it's a fail. I mean, I would probably want kids someday, but it's hard. It's hard with the state of the economy that we're in.
Oh my goodness. Has there ever been a time where it's been convenient for anyone in history to have a child?
I don't know.
The answer's no.
But I don't think I'm selfish for wanting a convenient time to have a child.
You are.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Well, you should, I don't know. I'm not going
I
to.
got to text some people about this kid thing.
Yeah, text some people. Yeah, text a whole bunch of people. Yeah, anyway. No, I think that you got to admit the answer to a shrinking population should not be, oh, let's flood the country with a bunch of immigration. It should be, let's get down and make some babies.
Oh, 100%.
We'll celebrate Straight Pride Month.
They've been teaching overpopulation in schools for 50 years.
You're 100% right. They teach replacement theory.
Well, dismantling the nuclear family has been an agenda item for the far-leaning left, whether they know it or not, since the beginning of time. That is basically the basis of their agenda. By the way, there's a giant spider behind you on the curtain, and it's totally distracted me.
Oh, yeah?
That is pretty big.
I mean,
is it going to come down and just land directly on me?
No, you're good.
It's a little jumping spider, isn't it?
No,
I like
it is
that
a jumping spider, but
Yeah.
I would say little is not how I would describe
No,
it.
he's medium sized. I've met him. He's a cool guy.
But yes, you're 100% right that we should be increasing our own
People output.
Yes, 100%.
That's right.
100%.
Yeah, but you got to choose who you're going to make the people with too. Like let's not pretend like the market that exists now is the same one that was present in the pre-60s era.
So you're giving in to the decimation that you were talking about.
Absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. It's just that sometimes you have to go outside the bounds of the United
borders?
States.
Yeah, right.
No, you don't have to, but obviously some people make that choice.
Okay, well, good. We should talk about that. You're saying that a lot of the ladies locally to you are not the most desirable for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, there's a lot of them that are not, for sure. And
he went looking real far away.
It's true. It's true. I actually didn't. That one that happened to fall in my lap, but that was never the plan, obviously. But yeah, no, I think that modern feminism has been a real disservice to birth rates. It's been a real disservice to the family.
Just society in general.
To society in general. Modern feminism has been kind of a cancer, and it's bad for everybody.
Let's talk about the details. What is it about the ladies? Let's really not be general about this, and let's say, this is, okay, we're in Oregon. We're in the Pacific Northwest.
Right. Blue Oregon.
Blue Oregon,
Yep.
And that's part of it. Those kind of mentalities are some of the things that you don't desire. I don't believe, right?
No, not at all.
Okay, well, what are those? What is it that's that Seth? He sees a lady and he's like, no, thank you. What kind of attributes do they have that makes Seth go, no, thank you?
Well, I think it has to do with what you're looking for in a marriage, right? So. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm completely at peace with the fact that marriage has nothing to do with independence, and it has everything to do with or with co-sustainability, right? So like
Co-sustainability?
Yeah.
How romantic.
yeah, like you're it's a symbiotic relationship where you both need each other, and one of the main pillars of feminism is this independence, right? Like I don't
Yes.
need no man. I can
That's
do
right.
it by myself. You know,
Go, girl.
You go, girl. And I think that if women choose that, then that is their choice, right? That's great for them. It's just not an appealing value system that I'm looking for when I'm trying to establish a mate for life. That, like,
Well, it leads to a barren, lonely death.
well, it leads
I would
to
think so.
competition between people too, right? Because a marriage is where both parties are striving toward the better good of the family, right? Whereas I'm good enough, I'm happy with myself, I'm strong and independent. Well, what's the core value there? It's me, right? And there's this selfishness that permeates that belief system. And I think that the base of a healthy marriage would be selflessness, right? So asking what's best for me, or how do I feel about it, which are things that are questions that are being pushed by modern feminists. I hear this all the time. If you're not happy, get out.
Oh, absolutely.
You hear that all the time.
Me, self, all
Sure.
that stuff, right?
Well, if you're just constantly thinking about what's better for you instead of what's better for the team and treating it as a team, then you're probably going to be relatively unhappy, and your partner's probably going to be even more unhappy.
So what's a team between a man and a woman in a marriage? What does a team look like to you?
Team look like?
Yeah, can you describe Seth's team in the future? This is like 5 years down the road.
It's 5 years down the road. Yeah, so I take it from the biblical teaching on marriage. That's where I derive most of my value in marriage, and I think that the way that it's outlined in especially the book of Ephesians is is the role in which people were designed to live in, right?
Tell me about it. I've written several books on the topic.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that the ceremonial head of the house is defined as the husband. And then people get really hung up on this, right? Because they're like, oh, the man's the head of the house, and they get these controlling whatever vibes and this, and they treat it as if he's ruling the house with an iron scepter. And if you actually read what's in the passage, it talks about how the leaders are to serve their wives, to love their wives. And if you look at the commandment, it has everything to do with love and service and nothing to do with this iron scepter approach. So I think there's a lot of misconception out there about how Christians view marriage. And to be fair, there's a lot of misrepresentation by Christians on how marriage is to be sustained and how marriage is to be enacted. And
may I elaborate on
Yeah,
that passage?
absolutely.
It says in Ephesians, love your wife as Jesus, loved the church and gave himself up for her.
Yeah, love it as your own
total
body.
Sacrifice.
Yeah.
So, total sacrificial stuff like you were talking about.
Absolutely.
He gave himself up for his wife, which is the church, which is the other Christian believers and
He
followers.
performed the ultimate sacrifice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's
absolutely.
how you are supposed to love your wife, ultimately sacrificial, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And what is she supposed to do based on this?
Well, it says for wives to respect and submit to their husbands. That's what it says.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people hear that and have a problem with it. And the examples that I've seen where a biblical marriage is implemented, both parties have been significantly happier than marriages that do not thrive on biblical principles. So,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So along with what you're saying, it would seem that feminism is antithetical to what you're talking about right now. It talks about nothing about submission. That sounds like control and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
To them, but
it's a labeling system where they try to undermine Christian values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
it's pretty easy to submit to your husband loving you, right? Like,
Absolutely.
That seems like a pretty great message.
Pretty easy one.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I think that's what it is. I think it's comfortableness, being able to submit to somebody who takes full-on stress and responsibility. The same way, as you're saying, like Jesus died on the cross to take all of our sins, right? And, wash them away from us with his blood. And the same way that a man is supposed to take on all the stress of the world, the job, the workforce, things like that, so that a woman doesn't have to actually take those stresses on. So that's one way that a man can be like Jesus, like it says in Ephesians. You can be the one who's out there battling the world, battling all the stresses, bringing home the bacon and all those things, and then the
So
wife.
you're arguing for like the male shield, basically.
Absolutely,
The male
that
shield,
is
the barrier between the outside world and all of its evils and problems, and then the
100%.
family.
That's part of what a husband is supposed to be, is
The gatekeeper.
Protecting gatekeeper shield. Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got a good grasp on this. I think that there's a lot of
And I want to be clear. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's not any people or women, especially in this area, that would fulfill those values at all. Like that was not my message. But we
That's
do
what I
live
heard.
we do live in a blue state, and we do live in a very feminist, modern feminist dominated society, and those values are becoming more and more rare by the day, for sure.
yeah,
Definitely
I
not
mean,
cool. It's definitely not cool to be a traditional, values woman. It's not cool to be that, or a traditional values man. That's not
Well, I mean, it's cool to me,
right.
but
Yeah,
for what it seems like the vast majority, it's not.
no, it's not even cool in the church, actually.
Okay, but now
Yeah.
who do we blame for this? You're right. It isn't cool in the church.
No, yeah,
The church has blown it. They're failing.
they really have. I
totally
I think
blowing it.
both parties. I mean, the leadership starts with men, so I think that's going to be. I guess if you were pointing fingers, I guess that would be the first finger that I would point would be at men.
Absolutely.
Obviously there was some bad role modeling that occurred along the way, repetitively, throughout generations. There was some acceptance. There was, a lot of people are getting indoctrinated in schools, but if you take on the responsibility of being the primary educator of your own children, then I guess that would probably be, if you're in charge of the education of your children. I'm not saying that you have to be a stay-at-home teacher for everything. Obviously, that works really well for some people and really badly for some people, depending on who
Yeah.
you're talking about here. But
Some women that I've been around personally have stated that they don't have the aptitude to be able to do that. They, for some reason, like I don't even understand it, but
and I get that, but everybody can do something,
yeah,
right? Like you don't need to be an English major to teach your kids basic structure, sentence structure, or stuff like
That's
that.
true.
Like the instructions are all there. I was homeschooled, and I have no regrets about that. I'm actually super grateful that I got to see a different view that a lot of people don't get to see. And I got to, obviously, Branden grew up in a public school system, so he got to see, the other
that
side of that
explains a
coin.
lot.
He got to see the other side of that coin, and I was raised in an extremely unique situation, and I'm super grateful for how I was raised, and I had no control over it. It just, God saw to bless me with that. So,
Well, I also think that I was one of the last generations before school started getting crazy.
the fact that you think you're a dude and not a puppy speaks to that.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Can you imagine sending your kid to a school and hoping that they're going to gather the necessary life skills to go out and be successful, and then they come home and
Well,
next thing you know, that you're expected to buy them a litter box?
Yeah,
like
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And for me, one of my favorite things in high school was, wood shop. We had a welding shop, we had an auto shop, all that. After I graduated, that all went away, so that they could
Oh my
just
gosh.
Yeah, that's
pack
terrible.
more.
so the programs don't even exist, huh?
Not in the public school system in the local area anymore. I think
Right.
there's a trade school for some of that, but taken all out of public schools just so that they could pack more kids into a classroom to get more federal funding.
Moving at
But
the
you're
speed
setting
of the slowest
you're setting them up
child.
for failure. At that point, you're telling them all that college is a necessity, and it's not.
It's not a necessity. You both, I happen to know, pull back some decent bucks. And did you both go to college?
Did a little bit, but not.
Yeah, I didn't graduate
Not much.
college. I did attend
Yeah.
college for
Me
something
too.
completely different than what I do now. I actually went to school for computer science.
I was gonna guess gender
That's
studies.
what I started in.
Computer science.
Yeah. Well, it was being pushed, right? So, like I was getting ready to graduate high school. I had some passions for different things, and I got some relatively bad news that I'm red-green colorblind, which excluded me from some of the military jobs that I was considering. And so I started looking at, what jobs are making the most money out there. And computer science and programming were like number one and number two. And then the actuarial sciences were number three. And they sounded so boring as the son of a CPA that I just couldn't see myself doing that. So I decided computer programming might be cool. And it wasn't.
No, but
It's terrible.
I couldn't sit behind a desk all day.
No, yeah.
So that's
It's
my hardest
ironic.
time.
It seems like every time they tell you what kind of career is going to be totally available, it ends up getting completely and utterly flooded in a bad way.
Does. Yep.
Oh yeah, pretty
And-
much every girl I knew in high school is an RN.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, pretty much everyone.
Okay, I still think they're making pretty good money.
Well, I think they are too.
Yeah.
But at some point, it's going to be
during
oversaturated.
COVID time, right?
Wait. Didn't you go to like the North Salem School District?
Yeah.
I don't know how many RNs were actually coming out of there. That's a pretty competitive program.
There's a lot of RNs.
I think some dental hygienist ended up, the route that they.
Some, sure.
It's a very competitive school, and hats off to those ladies and gentlemen that achieved that. That's a demanding,
100%. Not trying to diminish
high-paying
anybody's
career
accomplishments.
field. Yeah. But,
All right. Well, we don't have to overly focus on this career stuff, but is there any issues going on right now that really concern you? I think you were talking to me at some point about single mother situations and how
yeah.
it impacts our society and everything. Is there any negative impact? I think they're doing great.
Well, they're probably doing the best they can with what they got, but I definitely think it's
Are you down there at Stars supporting them, Casey?
yeah. I definitely
No,
think
that's a negative.
there is some harm being done, not just to them but their children.
Oh, yeah?
Ties into the family conversation we were having earlier.
Yeah,
for
not
sure.
having a father in the household. I think that's very detrimental to a child.
You think children need fathers?
100%.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
100%. I think they need mothers and fathers.
Both.
They're both designed to offer something completely different for that child.
I think you're right. I think that men and women have completely different aptitudes.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, and I don't think Seth would make a good mother.
I
I don't think you would either.
No, I definitely wouldn't.
No chance.
Couple ugly mothers. As far as women, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it seems like you all could do a pretty good job at fathers,
To be tested.
To be tested.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so, you know what, Brandon? What is this ideal scenario in which you can start reproducing and have a legacy?
I can't wait to see after it happens. Like I might
What
just
is-
try to time my Walmart visits to be the same.
What's
as
the
him.
ideal thing that men are brainwashed to think that they need to have happen before they can have kids?
I don't know. I'm just very, I have a very financial mindset.
Okay.
And so if I'm talking about the number one thing setting me back right now would be finances.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I know I'm definitely not alone in that. Daycare is expensive.
Yeah. I know that everybody since the beginning of time has talked about how they need the perfect scenario before they have kids. Really, all you need is a bottle of wine and to stop using birth control. Then all of a sudden, it just makes its own.
You have some
It just
personal experience
happens.
you'd like to talk about with that? Or?
No. Actually, I've been in a similar situation, but the biological child I have was intended. It was on purpose. So very
And
much.
nice.
And I didn't wait until I was rich or anything like that.
And do you believe you've been a good mother to this child?
That's a good question. I have been a terrible mother, and I don't know, maybe a mediocre father, but I try. I definitely
That's
try.
what's important.
Yes.
I think if we do just a little bit better than our fathers, we're in the right direction.
Never met mine, so I'm 100%
I was going to say,
there.
some
you
people
go.
have an easier
There you
task
go.
than others. Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point.
Mine's going to be a hard one to top. So.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying that for me too. Yeah.
Oh, you're okay.
Yeah, if I could be half the man or half the father my father was to me, I'll be good.
Okay. Well,
My kid will be just fine.
like I said, I've never met mine, so I'm like 110% beyond that.
You could just make up whoever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You got a lot of Batman paraphernalia.
do I? It was Bruce
I've
Wayne, and so I'm really screwed when it comes to finances. I'm not okay with that because, like, if it was Bruce Wayne, then I should be rolling.
He should be rolling.
Should be rolling.
Yeah, I mean, by all rights.
I mean, he had a flip phone up until like 6 months ago. So
It's personal
he's definitely
choice.
not rolling.
I was trying to avoid social media addiction, which is very real.
It is, and I will say this: I have gotten off of Facebook completely, app off my home screen, and I just don't even go into it anymore. And I will tell you this: there's a big difference in my
noticed.
mental clarity and just my headspace.
I noticed you weren't liking my comments on the Facebook page anymore.
I'm sorry.
It really took the wind out of my sails.
I should have let you know.
Okay, so what is this whole thing with addiction with social media and everything? Do you think it's narcissistic? Do you think it's like cocaine or what? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it has to do with dopamine. I think it has everything to do with dopamine.
It's all dopamine.
Basically, they've designed programs that are intended to create a dopamine response from your brain with minimal effort, and I think that it's very damaging. Even if things are going well on social media, I think that it's a very damaging, basically rewarding your brain and body with no effort, and so that principle in itself is quite unhealthy.
It's weird. It's weird that
Yeah.
somebody would assign value to, oh my gosh, someone liked my picture of spaghetti. I'm going to keep looking and see how many people I can get to like it.
Or I'm going to keep posting everything I eat.
Yeah.
It's like, nobody cares.
Or even my new dress, or even my new, I had this situation happen where it's like I bought a new car or something. It's like, why are we seeking all this external validation? What is wrong with people?
It's a good question, and I don't really have the answer to it. All I know is for like social media with me, the internet and everything is a gateway to a lot of amazing things, but it's also a gateway to a lot of terrible things.
Porn.
Sure.
Another dopamine response with
for me,
minimal effort.
I'd see
That's
something, tragic happened or whatever that happened, across the country that, isn't going to be on my local news, but now it's affecting me mentally and, my headspace.
Creates stress and anxiety.
Stuff like that. It's like, that's pretty much it for me. Is like I'm not seeing all the negative sides of it anymore.
I think if you have a certain purpose for social media, whether it's like brand or business promotion, or what I
or
use
just
it
to
for,
stay connected with family, close.
Yeah,
What do you use it for? Is this going to be weird?
I don't think it's weird. I have two purposes. I like to see where people. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I do a lot of hunting and fishing, and so when people have successful days on the water or out in the woods, they like to post about it, and then I try to steal their spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I've noticed that happen with all the cute little vacation spots here in Oregon.
Oh,
it used to be all these little secret little nooks and crannies, and then you go there and it's
don't
flooded
exist
with
anymore.
people and garbage.
Yeah, they're very rare. They do exist, but they're very rare.
So that's kind of a problem.
And then the other purpose
Yeah.
is just to argue with Canadians about becoming the 51st state is another pastime.
You want that to happen or you don't?
Oh, I do. Yeah,
You do want it to happen?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
wants
see.
to go hunting in Canada.
Oh, absolutely. I see a lot of upsides, and
Have you looked into what it would
downsides.
take to go to Canada hunting otherwise? It's like a 6-hour drive. What is holding you back?
firearm regulations, tag restrictions, guide pricing. It's all pretty inflated.
Okay.
It's all it's quite difficult. I mean, you can't even have a handgun in Canada anymore.
How many times have you been to Canada?
Officially one time, because my plane earlier this year landed in British Columbia when I was traveling home from somewhere else.
So you just
I was only in the airport.
you were only in the airport. It doesn't
and-
really count.
No, not at all. However, the Canadian vibe was pretty real. So the same flavor, I guess, that I was getting from Canadians online about, I never really got a lot of anti-American vibe from Canadians until the most recent election, and then I could tell that Canada was feeling a little spicy toward the U.S.
Yeah, that's because we got spicy with Canada.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
we
I
don't
think
hold back our Canadian mockery here.
No, and I
absolutely not.
and I definitely think Canada becoming a 51st state would be very interesting. But my
it's got
biggest,
pluses and minuses.
oh,
for
definitely.
Sure.
There's downsides and upsides to it all. But the thing I look forward to the most if it happens is just rearming the citizens. Like that would be so beautiful.
Absolutely.
I think the Electoral College could be a little disastrous.
My goodness.
That
You
could
make a
have
really
an effect.
good point.
Yes,
I think that could be a little disastrous. The natural resources would be incredible.
It would. But for the population, it would be like another California joining us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, even worse.
Yeah.
But it's. I fear that much like that jumping spider is now basically on my foot. He's made it all the way
He's
over
gone.
here. He is right.
Don't let it
here.
get you. Don't let it get you. It's actually hunting you. So this whole role reversal is happening right here in the studio live.
Nice.
Mr. Hunter is being hunted.
Yeah,
That is good. That's ironic.
it is.
You know what? We really bounce around with topics here, don't
We
we?
have not
we
stayed on
have
track
been.
for even.
You
a
are
minute.
going to have to do a hell of a job in the editing.
I'm not gonna edit a darn thing. But you know what? You know what I want to focus on is the fact that I think that a lot of men are failing women. Like you actually, touched on this a little bit. But we're talking about what we were talking about is the single mom epidemic, which I wrote a book called The Single Mom Epidemic. It's on Amazon. So I'm just saying.
How many copies have you sold, Casey?
It's unfathomable.
Oh,
So-
I think he wants you and I to,
I
as
think
soon as
that's
we
what-
walk out of here to buy a
He's
copy.
about to sell his first 2 copies.
Yeah.
But anyway, what the point is it brings up the fact that there's a lot of men who are dropping the ball on a lot of things, and
Of course.
they help attribute to this. I mean, all this stuff about we talked about women being empowered and all these things. I mean, have we considered the fact that we put them in a position where they better empower themselves? Otherwise, they're left in some shady situation. I mean, because there's a lot of man children out there.
Of course.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do.
I think that the dating selection and the natural selection from women has also helped contribute to this. Like, how many dirtbags do we know that are slinging babies right and left, and passing their dirtbag genetics around, and you're just like, and how many I guess quote unquote nice guys, at home listening to talk radio, 6 hours a day on their computer, just working their 9-to-5 jobs are not getting laid, I guess.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys, they are laying themselves with porn, and
Oh,
they
of
don't have a
course.
driver's license and all these different things.
There's-
They're beta, right?
Of course, yeah. There's a lot
thing.
of decisions that they make that lead them to where they're at, and I think it's a complicated issue, right? It's a multifaceted issue, right? So
It is.
There's a
Absolutely. Like, men have also attributed to the boss babe.
Oh, of
like,
course.
Like you've said, men deserve some responsibility for that. And I think a big part of that actually has to do with the fact that, a guy will utilize pornography because, I don't know, they're lazy.
quick and easy.
They want the most attractive woman out there while they're like a 2.
Right.
And
Right.
then they...
Yeah, I mean, making yourself desirable is kind of step one, right? Like if you're not a desirable individual, then you could never hope to attract someone who is desirable.
And desirable is health and value, the different types of value that you offer.
I mean, and how many people do we know that are, just searching real hard for that one person, right? But there's so many issues they already have that they need to work on before they get to that point. It's like,
I think we both have someone in mind.
take care of yourself.
Yeah,
Before
absolutely.
you can help taking care of somebody else.
I think the first step is a realization, personally. Like, not me, but somebody going, I'm a man child. You know what I mean? And then deciding they want to take that step. But I think that first step in itself is almost enough to start. Well, it's definitely a catalyst to start major change, because once you determine that you're massively flawed, you can start working on health, you can start working on organization, structure, systematically improving your life one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I also wrote a book about that. It's called Life Systems on Amazon.
Oh, we're gonna want
But
to. We're gonna have to buy that one too.
You're gonna want to pick that up. That's just
Is that, like,
informative.
published by
That's not a
Random House
commercial.
Audio, or like who's your
That's not a
publisher?
commercial. It's just informative.
Okay.
I was just throwing out some information. But yeah, just taking things systematically, step by step. Once you realize it, I think realizing that you need to change your life is the only step that has to happen before you start creating a system to do that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and creating the system for success, and I come at this as someone who's always achieving, or, hoping to achieve more, who's always striving for more. Stay hungry, and I think a key component to that is making yourself do things that you don't want to do every day.
Yeah. I think a good key to that is delayed gratification.
Absolutely.
Like I don't get, a candy bar or whatever it is, whatever your goal is. I'm not going to allow myself to have that until I've accomplished A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you know what I mean?
Self-respecting is super important, and I think that if you don't respect yourself, it is impossible for someone else to respect you. And part of respecting yourself is by making yourself do things that you don't want to do. And then once you've done those things, the sense of gratification that you get from that is actually pretty mind-blowing. Like and it can be something so simple, right?
Yeah.
Something so simple.
Like playing Fortnite with you.
You just he wants
Yeah,
to.
you don't get to play Fortnite until you mow the
Sure.
lawn.
That's right.
You can create a reward system as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. One thing that I did for a long time, I haven't done it recently, but I did this for a long time, is I would get up in the morning, and before I did anything, I would take an ice cold shower for as long as I could stand it. And it was terrible, right?
What did that solve?
Yeah. What did that do for you?
Well, it was a huge endorphin rush, first of all. There was a bit of a dopamine rush as well. And it was a step one in overcoming something that I didn't want to do, that had essentially no purpose behind it, right? Like I already shower later in the day anyways. Like
So it
prior
had
to going.
no purpose? It
Other
didn't have
than-
to do with being single or anything? I don't know.
No.
I hear things about cold showers. I don't know what it
Oh
means.
no, yeah, no, I mean, it was really
It's
cool.
you're just challenging yourself.
Yeah,
to do
you're challenging
something.
yourself to do something that you don't want to do. You're overcoming that challenge, and I think, it creates a self-respect over time, and that's just one example. Another one would be doing getting up and doing cardio, right? So I'd go take a
Now-
cold shower, and then I'd go do
cardio
cardio.
sucks.
I see
Cardio
the
sucks.
beneficial aspects of cardio. I see that.
Right.
Cold shower thing, I don't know. But things
Well,
that...
there's physical benefits to a cold shower.
Well, there's the answer then.
Yeah, no, it has huge anti-inflammatory properties. It
Yeah.
creates a blood flow increase that helps your body repair itself. It helps transfer white fat cells into brown fat cells that are more easily utilized by your body, because it has to do with how your body heats itself, so it increases your metabolism. And there's quite a few physical benefits to ice baths and ice showers, an ice bath being significantly better than an ice shower.
That sounds fun. I think I might
But no,
try
it's
one.
terrible. It's horrible.
Oh,
Like, I did it every day, and it was just as hard on day 50 as it was on day 1.
I'm going to give it a shot.
Do it.
Give it a try.
You just go in there, you turn your shower as cold as it'll go, you give it a minute or two to reach terminal temperature, as I call it, and then you go in there, and the first thing I'd do is I'd put my head under the water and just ride it out. I mean, as soon as you go into the water, you want to leave the water, like, instantly. And you just basically fight through your body's urges to do that. I actually added step 2 to the cold shower process.
Yes. Now, are we going to want to hear step 2?
No, that's fine.
What is step 2?
Step 2 of doing things that I don't want to do is I would take a shot glass and I would pour raw, filtered apple cider vinegar into the shot glass.
Oh, been there.
And I'd fill it about halfway full, because a full shot of apple cider vinegar is just crazy. I couldn't do that.
Okay.
And then I would take a 1/4 teaspoon of red ground cayenne pepper, okay,
Great.
which has anti-inflammatory properties and
Okay.
is great for your body. And I would mix it in the apple cider vinegar. And as I was stepping into the ice cold water, I would take the shot of the apple cider and cayenne combo, right? And I've actually only done it like 4 times ever.
They say it's good for your liver.
And the head rush that I get from that is insane. My body doesn't know what to do. I'm coughing from the cayenne. My throat's burning.
You know what I'm hearing right now? I'm hearing that next time I see you guys, we need to create this ritual.
Yes.
It's quite a ritual.
Like pretty much
you got to do it first thing in the morning too.
time I
You
see
can't be
you guys.
having food and stuff before all that. You want to do it on an empty stomach. You know?
No. Every time I see you guys, this might be a ritual we do. The vinegar with the cayenne. You down?
I'm down.
I don't think you know what
It's a
you're saying.
challenge.
I don't think you know what you're putting yourself through, but I'm willing to
I'm gonna do it.
I'm willing to do it with you, but it's pretty bad.
All right. Next time I see you guys outside of here,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the store today.
To get some freaking apple cider vinegar.
Yes.
Get Bragg's. That's
So
the flavor.
get
You want
yourself-
Bragg's organic apple cider vinegar.
Get yourself in the mode.
It's the
Prepare yourself
mental mind
mentally
state.
right now. And maybe that's going to cause some anxiety, and maybe you're going to have to go on Facebook or something like that for the anxiety. I don't know, but you got to prepare yourself right now. I think with that being said, maybe we should close shop.
All right.
We got a
Okay.
game plan.
We do.
Right on.
All right? All right,
Deal.
this is
Signing off.
Free Speech Northwest signing out.